There we go. Welcome everyone to the last of the 2017 Bonitas Comrades online training seminars. And this one is all about race day. It's the biggie. Thank you so much again for joining us. I know life does get busy, and yeah, to take an hour out, hour and a half out, particularly at this stage in your Comrades training when all you want to do is sleep on a Monday night, we really do appreciate it. And a huge thank you to Bonitas, who has made this series of webinars possible. Without them, they wouldn't have happened. So a massive, massive thank you to Bonitas. And remember, the hashtag is Bonitas Comrades right throughout the entire campaign. So we look forward to seeing you in Derbs. But a huge welcome, as always. Who we are, I'm Brad Brown. And yeah, with me, we've got Lindsay Barry, the official Comrades Marathon coach. Good evening, Lindsay.
How's it, Brad? Good evening to everybody. I'm sure we're all getting a little nervous that Comrades is literally on the doorstep.
Yeah, and nerves are good. You've got to love modern technology. Lindsay is back from his high altitude training camp. He's in Johannesburg tonight. I'm sitting in Cape Town, and yeah, we've got people from all around the world once again. So that is brilliant. Lindsay, let's just run through what we're going to be going through tonight, and then let's jump straight into it. As always, comments and questions are welcome. There's a little questions bar if you've joined us late, or if you were here before we actually started the official proceedings. You will know that there's a little comments bar. You can ask your questions in there, and we'll get to as many of them as possible this evening. What are you going to learn tonight? What are we going to go through? And then we've also got a massive, massive announcement a little bit later on. Some good news. I'm pretty excited about this. This is something I've been working on particularly hard. I've had my head down in the trenches, and not too many people know about it. So I'm going to spill the beans tonight, which is brilliant. So what are we going to learn tonight? Where should you be right now? What should you be doing for the next 2 and a bit weeks? And then we'll be chatting about sorting niggles out, and then race day management. Lindsay, I'm going to hand over straight to you. Let's jump into where people should be right about now within their training.
Look, we are 3 weeks to go, so we really should be in the taper. I have seen an alarming number of people on social media that still, up to this weekend, we're doing 6-hour training runs and 50K training runs and 60K training runs. It's very late in the day, and remember, the later you push your training out, the sharper your taper needs to be. So right now, yeah, you should have started your taper at 4 or 5 weeks, but remember, the taper, it's a bit miscellaneous in those first, with 5 weeks to go and 4 weeks to go, or a bit misleading, not miscellaneous, misleading, because we still need to keep training, and the taper will be very gradual. It will start to pick up a little bit of speed now, and then next week you should be doing a maximum of 70% of your regular training volume, and then the final week you'll do very little. So I think to wrap up, exactly where are you now? You're as fit as you're ever going to be. You're not going to get fitter from here, but what you are going to do is you're going to work on getting fresher. So although you are fit and strong, a lot of people will be feeling pretty tired, probably a little bit mentally and physically broken, and the next 3 weeks are all about getting that freshness in. And to that end, you really want to manage yourself. I always say in these 3 weeks, when in doubt, leave it out. And just so that everybody knows that I practice exactly what I preach, I stopped my run on Thursday evening, and because my Achilles was hurting, I walked home. I got treatments on Friday. It was still a little sore over the weekend, so I had some more treatment today, and I will be starting to run again on Wednesday. So I will lose pretty much a week of my training, but considering that the other, from January until Thursday, the training was perfect, really, you can afford a week out now. What's most important, and we'll get into in a bit more detail later on in the slide, is that I start on the 4th of June, pain-free, injury-free. So manage yourself through this period. If you really are struggling, if you can feel you're starting to maybe get a little bit sick, if you can feel you've picked up a niggle, then rather rest a couple of days now, get yourself sorted out, get healthy and strong for race day. If you haven't yet, then you must pack your race bag pretty soon. So your race bag is the shoes that you're planning on racing in, your socks, obviously your club kit, Vaseline, plasters, suntan lotion, the gels that you're planning on using, any of that sort of stuff. But anything that you know that you're going to need leading into race morning or on race day, that needs to go into a bag now so that you know that it's done. You also then know if there's something that you don't have that you can go out to the shops and buy, so that you're not running around in Durban trying to buy whatever you need when you get here, particularly if you're coming from overseas, because then you probably won't get what you need over here. And make sure, therefore, that all your race day goodies are ready. If you are part of a South African club, or if you're an international and you're gonna make use of the international runners, I forget the company that does it, but to put out stuff en route so that you can pick up stuff that you're familiar with on the route, then make sure that you've got all that stuff. That is pretty much where you want to be at this moment in time.
Yep, absolutely. Lindsay, I think let's get on to a couple of questions. And if you want to get them through, get them into that question bar. And it started already. People asking if they've done enough mileage. I'm going to nip that in the bud right now. We're not going to go down that road, because if you've done 200 Ks, there's nothing you can do about it. If you've done 2,000 Ks, there's nothing you can do about it. Now's not the time to be worrying about, because if we say no, what are you going to do? You can't go out and run 100 Ks this week or tomorrow. It's just not going to make you fit it. So what has happened, I think. As my mother used to say, it is what it is. Cool. Let's talk about... yeah, Lindsay, pacing. We've been getting lots of questions about pacing. I've been getting lots of emails. There's a few coming through now with regards to sort of what time should we be going through the various points, like halfway and that sort of thing for the various medals. Is this the forum to do it, or would you suggest that people come and see you at the expo, pick up a pacing chart and literally sit down and have a chat with you about a pacing strategy?
Look, it's going to be hard for them to have a one-on-one with me at the expo, because I'm giving a talk. Look, the good thing is I'm giving a 40-minute talk specifically on managing the route and pacing yourself. So I will be giving 2 of those talks a day at the expo, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So it'll be late morning and sort of middle of the afternoon. Those are the 2 slots, and then I will be there to answer questions for about an hour after that talk. So I'm not going to be at the expo as past years indefinitely, but those times will be published ahead of time, and we will send it out to our database so that people know when they are there. But absolutely, the pacing chart is the best way to go. Look, the reality is that the pacing charts are on the half hour, and I could possibly answer a couple of questions now about on the specific hours, but everybody is going to have a fairly unique target. So we've got a couple of hundred people on here. Even if 20 people ask a pacing question, it's going to be too difficult to answer them specifically. But what I can tell you as a pretty good piece of general advice is that the halfway mark, so when you're running and you get to so-called halfway, things on Comrades happen at traditional points. So Drummond, as you get to the bottom of Drummond in the hollow, that is halfway, and on the up run, that is before the mathematical halfway. The mathematical halfway is still just over a kilometer up the road, and so therefore when you do your race analysis and when you're doing your race planning, you will then plan for a positive split, because you'll be running just over 42 Ks in the first half and over 43 Ks in the second half. So whereas on the down run it's the other way around, second half shorter than the first, even though on the up run the second half from a profile point of view is a lot easier than the first half, you can expect to be a good 5 to 8 minutes slower on the second half if you pace yourself well.
Cool. We've got a couple of injury questions as well, which I'm just going to put off because you are going to chat about that and getting those sort of things sorted out. Chris Diaga saying, can I still lose weight prior to Comrades? Lindsay, is it too late? What's done is done?
Look, it's definitely, yeah, look, I think that is the best advice. I think you have to take the training that you've done into account when setting a realistic goal. And again, that is something we're going to chat about when I talk about the actual race day. But literally, you know, you've got a week now. If you've been injured for quite a while, like 3 weeks you've been out, then what I would do is to do steady training. So you're certainly not going to load. I mean, you don't want to make yourself tired before race day. But probably for the next 2 weeks, then I would do what I would call moderate mileage to get a little bit of a pickup in fitness. And then the last week you would do nothing. But literally up to this point in time, I think what you've said is right. What's done is done. At 3 weeks to go, for 99% of the field, we are as fit as we could possibly be. And resting a few days now and making sure that you're injury free and that you don't get sick, that's where your priority should lie.
Yeah, Lindsay, I'm flicking through the questions, and so many of the questions that you guys are asking, it's coming up in the presentation. So I'm just going to bomb straight through, and I think we're going to cover a lot of those bases. So let's talk about the next 2 and a bit weeks, exactly what people should be doing between now and Comrades Race Day.
Yeah, so again, we do want to maintain our gains while we allow ourselves to freshen up. So how do we go about maintaining those gains? Well, we carry on doing some training. So it's not like we're going to tap off now and we're doing no training at all. And this week in particular will be a fairly normal week, Monday to Friday. So I would do the kind of standard training that I've been doing. I may just pick up the intensity ever so slightly. So what does that mean? It means that I may average 2 to 3 seconds a K quicker than I have been. So it's literally just that little touch of ratcheting it up. On the weekend, though, I'm going to do significantly less than, or you should be doing significantly less than what you've been doing over the weekends up until this point in time. Then 2 weeks out, you're going to slash that volume down to 70%. That's your Monday to Friday volume. You're going to slash that down to 70% of what you normally do, and your so to maintain that bit of or to maintain the fitness, again you'll ratchet it up probably another 2 or 3 seconds a K. So we're not talking about pushing it harder and really giving it a rev. We're just talking about slightly upping that intensity a little bit, and then over the weekend you're going to drastically cut what you've been doing. So for most people, I would say on that weekend you should be doing a maximum of 15K for your long run, but anywhere between 8 and 10Ks is acceptable. So essentially that last weekend the taper is flat out. Then in the last week you need to make a decision more or less for yourself and how you want to do it. You're going to do very little running either way. At most 50% of what you did the week before. So you've already dropped 70%. Now you're going to drop a further 50% from there, which means you're probably sitting at about 30% of your normal mileage. Now that's the most running that you're going to be doing. And again, you will do that at a slightly, and again, we're talking 2, maximum 3 seconds per K faster. So we're just keeping the engine revving, but we really drop that volume. And some people will do absolutely nothing, and that's also okay. What you will find if you do nothing is that tension will build up, because the little bit of exercise that you do each day does help to just dissipate some of that nervous energy. So you will build up some tension, and certainly on race day for the first 5 to 8 Ks, you might feel a little bit uncomfortable and feel that your body's tightened up a little bit. But from a performance point of view, once you're warmed up and once you're going, it really won't make any difference whether you do a little bit or whether you do absolutely nothing. So that'll be a personal preference. Very importantly, we are going to allow full recovery. So if there is pain, if there are any niggles, now is not the time to push through them and think they'll just get better and better as you taper and do less training. You really need to get to a healthcare professional and get them treated. Because if you don't treat them, you're still going to feel that little bit of a niggle when you get to the start line. And if you start with a niggle, I promise you by Fields Hill, which is not even a third of the way into the race, it won't be a little niggle anymore. It'll be sore. It's going to hamper your progress. It's going to start jeopardizing whether you can finish the race or not. So treat the pain, get to a physiotherapist, make sure that you do everything you can to get to the start line pain-free. And this really is one of those ways. This is one of those times where is definitely more. You want to err on the side of caution. Again, I'll repeat what I said earlier. When in doubt, leave it out. Okay, if you're having that conversation with yourself every single day this week, and it's just because every time you wake up you're tired, you're probably going to have to get yourself out there and do a little bit less than you planned, but you don't want to, just for the sake of it, miss an entire week of training. But certainly missing 1 or 2 days that you would have done is the way to go over these last 3 weeks.
Brilliant. Yeah, Lindsay, I think that's fantastic advice. And I think that treating pain, we've got a couple of people asking about shin splints and that sort of thing. You gave a stat in the last webinar. I don't know if you remember it offhand, the percentage of people who start the race with an injury. What are the odds of them finishing? Do you know that stat offhand?
So 68% of the 1,000 respondents to our questionnaire who didn't finish the race said that they didn't finish Comrades because they started with an injury. So out of 1,000 people who finished, almost 700 of those started with an injury.
Who didn't finish, you mean?
Yes. Those who started and didn't finish. Of those 1,000 that answered our questionnaire, they started with an injury.
Yeah, and if that doesn't drive the message home, I'm afraid absolutely nothing will. Another quick thanks to Bonitas for helping us put these online seminars on. Lindsay, let's talk about the last few days. And you mentioned that last week of training as well. And I'll throw this question here because I think it's a bit of a crossover from the last slide to this one. A couple of people asking about possibly running the park run the day before Comrades. What are your thoughts on that? And also a couple of internationals coming out, and there is that run on the beachfront as well. What's the deal with running the day before?
Look, I've always done it, and this year is the first year that I've experimented without running the day before, and I've done it. I did it both for my 50K. In fact, I did it quite by accident for 2 Oceans, and I felt really good at Ocean, so I decided to repeat the experiment on one of my 50K training runs, and I felt amazing, and I repeated it on my 60K training run, and so I won't be running the day before Comrades. But again, it's something you do need to find out over time, and I've always been a firm believer that you don't have to do a lot, but you should do something. And of course, now, 35 years later, I've decided that I won't be doing anything the day before. So that is a bit of a personal choice, but what I can say is that run is really just a limb loosener. It should not be competitive in any form or shape. 5Ks when you're fit enough to do Comrades is nothing. So if you're coming from overseas and you want to notch up another park run on the totem pole, go for it. But just be very mindful that it is super easy. It's a bit of a jaw. And that the international run is probably the kind of run that suits or lends itself well to this sort of thing, which is 4Ks of just talking nonsense and a little shuffle. So it is a bit of a personal preference. As I said, I've I've always maintained it's important to run the day before, but I have changed my mind this year after how I've experienced it. So you do need to experiment a little bit in the run up to these races. What I will say is that you shouldn't change your routine. So if you have always run the day before a race, then please do so before this Comrades. And if you've never run the day before a race, please don't do so before Comrades, because you just don't know how that change is going to impact your body.
If I can just jump in there too, Lindsay, the park run in Durban is quite a nice one. You're going to be fitter than you've ever been. The day before Comrades is not the time to try and smash a PB at a park run either.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. Look, besides the obvious risk of ruining your race the next day, just the risk of injuring yourself, yeah, that would be crazy.
All right, let's talk about the last few days. The expo is it's one of the best expos in running, and it's easy to get sucked in.
Yeah, so look, people are coming from far away. Almost everybody who does this race comes from outside of the Natal province. So loads of visitors, and what a cracker of an expo. It runs on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, obviously. I, in the past, have had to be there most of the day on at all three expos, and it's part of the reason why I actually stopped running Comrades, because it literally exhausts me. Being at the expo for 3 days, it feels like I am starting Comrades after the day after completing an Ironman. That's really what I've always felt like doing Comrades, and so I took the decision not to run Comrades anymore, so that I could really be at the expo without worrying about me being tired, etc. This year I'm coming to race Comrades, which is why I'm really limiting my time at the expo as low as I can without feeling that I'm completely neglecting my duties as a coach. So yeah, the expo is great. You can get in there and see absolutely everything you need to see and get registered in maximum 2.5 hours, and that probably includes sitting down and grabbing a bite to eat. That is really all the time that you need to spend at the expo to soak up the atmosphere, learn about all the new exciting products on the market, get yourself some awesome Comrades memorabilia, and to have a chat with me and probably listen to one of my talks. So you don't need to lurk and lurk and lurk. If you do want to have that kind of expo experience, then really you should get there on the Thursday. Maybe you can linger a little bit long on the Friday, but the people who register on a Saturday, you do not want to bugger around at the expo. And as I said, having been not forced, but having to need to be at the expo for 3 full days for the best part of a decade, I have seen how runners come and trawl through the expo day after day after day, all day long on their feet. I don't know how they do it. I don't know why they do it. So come into the expo, enjoy everything that's on offer, but then get out of there. The other thing about being at the expo is it makes it very difficult to control your nerves. You just keep seeing runners in cooler shoes than you. They look fitter than you. They talking up times faster than you. You just, it kind of stokes the flames of the nerves. And while some nerves are good, nerves also burn energy. So you don't want to be in a constant knot. And Comrades isn't that different to a final exam at university or high school. If you lurk around and you start hearing about training other people have done, and you start getting into a knot because you haven't done enough hill work or you haven't done enough mileage, you don't need that in your life. So you just don't want to be lurking around, primarily because your prime focus in the last few days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, is actually to stay off your feet. It's to spend as little time on your feet as humanly possible so that you can save your legs for race day. That's really what these last few days should be about. You can go down to the beachfront there and sit in a restaurant. Just make sure you don't sit in the blazing sun. That's fine. You're relaxed. You're sitting down. Same for dinner, long lingering breakfast, although you don't want to be stuffing your face too heavily because you will have cut down on your exercise. But really, that's the main message I want to say, is to stay off your feet. And then the final thing, a bit tongue-in-cheek here, is to root or not to root. That is the question. And I'm sure we will get that question tonight, and so I'm going to answer it now. A scared Comrades runner is always a good Comrades runner. On the up run, you really have to respect the route, and you have to understand that by 50 Ks, you will have done 3 of the big 5. By halfway, you'll have done 3 of the big 5. By 50 Ks, you will have done 4 of the big 5. And that is a significant amount of climbing. So if you are getting to Durban early enough, Thursday, if you're in Durban on Thursday, I'd say go for it. Go and check out the route. It's good to know what's coming, because when I tell you just now in this presentation how easy you have to go, you will understand it when you see the mountains that you have to climb over in the first 50 Ks of the Comrades. If you're getting there on Friday, I'd be quite wary of traveling the route if you're getting there late on Friday. And if you're arriving in Durban on Saturday, it's bad luck. You do not want to be crammed and squashed in a car driving to Pietermaritzburg and back again. That's going to be like a proper 4 to 5 hour round trip. So you do not want to be doing that the day before. But it is good to see the route, if the situation allows, and that means that you do need to be in Durban early enough to drive the route.
Absolutely. Right, cool. A couple of questions just before we get into race day management. Lindsay, one from Martin. I think this is a very important question that we need to touch on. Martin says he's contemplating running with a bus that might be slightly too fast for him to run the whole race at that particular pace. He's planning on sticking with him for as long as possible and hopefully till the end. Is that a good, a bad, or a terrible idea?
Look, it's about as bad idea as I've ever heard. So, from Two Oceans, I always find the buses, I have to always be careful how I answer these questions. I always find the buses to be very helpful for people in the last third of the race, okay? When you're not feeling great and somebody can do the thinking for you and they can drag you along, then it's probably not the worst place to be, okay? But again and again and again at races that I've been to, the buses just go out screamingly fast. Screamingly fast. So Martin, you think you're going to be going a little bit faster than you should by being in that bus, but actually you're going to be going a lot faster than you should, because almost every bus goes way too fast through the first half. And the buses always deliver the people on time, and there are loads of people on the internet that are singing their praises, because those are generally people that got caught by the bus later in the race, or perhaps caught up to the bus. But the people who climbed on the bus right from the word go, the ones that need the bus the most, they end up blowing off the bus often before halfway or just after halfway. So I'm not a huge fan of the buses. At Comrades, some of those buses are huge, like 1,000 to 2,000 runners. So the other problem with being in a bus is you can't get to water point, and you can't get to the water at the water tables. What I will assure you of, Martin, is that you won't be running alone. So if it's companionship that you're looking for, and that being one of the reasons why you'd like to join in a bus, I promise you, with 16,000 other runners on the road, you are not going to be lonely, and you will find people to help you get through the first Ks without thinking too much about what you're doing, and having a bit of a chat and catching up and finding out where people are from and what training they've done, so on and so forth.
All right, before we get into race day management, one more question, and I think this is an awesome question from Wagner. Lindsay, Vadna says, what are the three most important things that you say to your top athletes the night before the race that we as normal athletes can apply on race day?
I always remind them how hard they've worked. I always tell them how much they deserve the performance that they're going to get. And I always tell them to stick to the plan. So that's literally the three things that I say in a little message that I word slightly differently every time. And really, that applies to everybody. We have all done the work. We all deserve the day that we're going to get, because it is a reflection of our training. And we will get that day as long as we stick to the plan. If we don't stick to the plan, if we go too fast in the first half, then it's not going to be such a great day, but we will still have got the day that we deserve because we didn't stick to the plan.
Love that, Vanna. What a great question. Thanks for that. Let's talk about race day management, Lindsay. Yep.
I'm gonna add something else, and it's not something I say to my elite athletes the night before, but it's something that I harp on over. If you coached by me, this is something that I'll remind you of over and over and over again. You can only run the race that you're capable of. The best position you will get is the fastest time that you are capable of the day. And the only way to run the fastest time you're capable of the day is to run the perfect race. If you run a perfect race, you can't control what the other people are doing around you. You can only control what you do. If you run a perfect race, you'll run your fastest time. You run your fastest time, that's the best comrades you're capable of. Simple.
Awesome. Let's talk about goals, Lindsay, because this is important. Is to make sure that we have a, like you say, you plan what you're going to do and you stick to the plan. So having a goal is vital.
Yeah. So setting your goal and what you want to achieve on race day is absolutely critical to your race day management, and it needs to be realistic. So how do we make it realistic? Okay, this again, I have to answer this question in general terms, but I'll give you a pretty good idea. So I'm gonna take I'm gonna spend a little bit of time on the slide. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so a rule of thumb which works pretty well for the bulk of the field. So what do I mean by the bulk of the field? I mean pretty much anyone who's slower than silver, and anyone who's faster than probably 11:45. This principle works really, really well. You take a marathon time, you multiply it by 2.5, and you add 5 to 10 minutes for the up run versus the down run. Okay. You won't add that time if you find over the course of your running career that relative to most other people, you are very strong on the hills. You're very strong on the hills. You may well find that you enjoy the up run more than the down run. I fall into that category. And then your up run time may well be very similar to your down run time, if not a little bit quicker. Okay. And then that rule starts to slide a little. The slower you get, the less accurate that becomes. So for example, if you're a 5 hour, if you've run your qualifier in 5 hours and you had to apply that, it will have you not finishing. Okay, so that's why I say it stops being accurate from about a 4, I think it's about a 4:52 marathon or whatever, but it still gives you a rough idea. It gives you a pretty good idea of what you should be aiming for. Now that also means that you have been pretty good in your training. Now how do you know if you've been good in training? How do you know if you've done enough volume? Well, if your training volumes are adequate, what you'll find is that as you go from a 10K to a 21K to a 42K, you have a fairly normal curve. In other words, you slow down by somewhere in the region of 3 to 5% per kilometer on average. If your curve slows down a lot more than that, then that probably tells us that from a training volume point of view, you perhaps aren't doing quite enough to go for the medal that you want to go for, and so you would then slow down a little bit from your medal. Okay, again, these principles apply less the further we go back in the field, and that tells you a lot about the human psyche, and if you have to do something, you very often can do it. Anyway, once you've set that goal and you know what it is, then you need to sit down with the route profile, and we're going to go over that in the next slide, and that is to say, right, these are going to be my slowest parts of the route, and these are going to be the fastest points of my route. And if I want to get to that goal time, how slow can I afford to go on the ups, and how fast does that mean I need to go through these other sections? And that is how you then work out your race plan, and you execute it on race day. And I'm not saying that if you do the perfect pacing strategy, that when you get to the last 16 Ks, which if we take poly shorts out of the last 16 Ks, is a very easy 16 Ks. So you've got 2 Ks of bloody hard and 14 Ks of very easy. I'm not saying you won't be sore. I'm not saying you won't be tired. But what I am saying is that those are the most runnable parts of the course. And if you want to, and you've given yourself, or you've saved enough energy, you will run those pretty fast to be able to catch up a lot of time. And I'm going to just use a quick example here of an athlete that came to see me last year that I actually know from school. So I know he's a very good runner. Used to run against him at school, but he had been trying to get a bull run for 7 years. Came to me, asked me for a pacing chart. Going down poly shorts, my pacing chart called for him to take a walk break. So he had to actually go off the road. Now remember, it's dark when you go down poly shorts in the down run. He had to go off the road because obviously no one else was walking. And at the time, he'd run a couple of Ks with a foreign athlete, and she'd said to him, well, what are you doing? And he said, no, my pacing chart's in a walk. And she was like, well, I'm definitely not walking now. And he just quickly asked her, what was your goal time? And he looked at her race number, mentally noted it, and he did his walk. Anyway, he finished in 8:56. He got his bull roan. The last 10 Ks, he was buggered. He told me he was absolutely buggered, but he could still run. And that was the important thing. He literally was on pace, on the pacing chart the whole way around. 8:56. Went and looked up that woman that he ran the first roughly 8 Ks with, had a look for her. She finished in 10 hours something. If you don't look after yourself early in the race, you will pay for it later on. It won't be easy later on, but I always have a mantra that I use to myself: tired but strong, sore but strong. Even though I can feel the kilometers that I've run, I can also feel the strength. And why can I feel the strength? Because I've been conservative. Okay, so set out an achievable, realistic plan, stick to it on race day. And then absolutely critical is nothing new on race day. And I probably should have put that in the days leading into the race too. It's more difficult with food because you're in hotels or staying at friends' houses perhaps, but you still want to try and stick as close to the types of foods that you've been eating the whole time you've been training, the breakfast that you've been having, but you are not going to do anything new on race day. If you haven't tried it before race day, I often get the foreigners going, oh, but hang on, we don't have Powerade and we don't have Coke at our races, and we're not used to it. So Powerade and Gatorade are so similar that you will be okay racing on Powerade. And of course, Coca-Cola is pretty much sold in every country in the world, so you will have had plenty of opportunity to drink a little bit of Coca-Cola as you run from petrol station to petrol station. But certainly Energade is close enough to Gatorade that if you've used Gatorade in races, it'll be similar.
Lindsay, just jumping in there, you're talking of Gatorade. We've had a couple of questions with regards to the support along the route, and I think it's mostly the international runners wondering about what is going to be at the refreshment stations and should they carry everything they need with them. Do you know offhand sort of what is going to be available, how far into the race and that sort of thing? I know, I mean, the second half of Comrades, you can almost see the next refreshment table from the one you're at. They're so close together, but what advice would you give there?
Yeah, so almost every station will have water, Coca-Cola, and Energade. Okay, and then once you get into the second half of the race, some of the tables they won't have Coca-Cola, but they'll have cream soda and lemonade. So I mean that's very similar to Coke. Tastes different, but it's carbonated, and they don't have caffeine, but it's basically bubbled sugar. So those are the drinks that you'll have on the route. There will be heaps of potatoes, loads of bananas, loads of oranges, and they will be randomly at the different tables, starting again predominantly in the latter part of the race. So in the second half, there will be some jelly babies, jelly beans, those kind of sweet things. And then race food is one of the official race sponsors. So that, I mean, they won't like me describing it like this, but if you've eaten nougat, you will be able to eat race food. It's a nougat-y type of thing. Obviously, they sell themselves as using more natural products, but from a texture, taste point of view, if you practice running a little bit on nougat, you'll be fine using race food. Gels or gum shots or any other sort of energy tablets you will have to carry yourself. You won't get those on the side of the road.
Yeah, and if this is the first seminar you've been on with us, there is an organization, I know Bruce Fordyce is involved with them. It's called Complete Marathon, Lindsay, I think, off the top of my head. They do
Yes,
a support
That's
package.
right.
It's not just for international runners. Anyone can use it. And I think they have 2 spots along the road where you can drop off a package that you'd like along the route, and then you can pick it up on race day. So go check that website out. I'm not sure if the cutoff date has come and gone that you need to get the stuff in by or order by, but it's worth having a look now. Lindsay, Marius wanted to know about donating blood 2 weeks before Comrades race day. Good idea, bad idea? Should you wait till after race day?
Look, I think 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you'll be okay after 2 weeks. You know, again, if you're a marginal finisher or you're marginal on the medal that you're going for, I'd probably save it for 2 weeks after race day. But if you're fairly comfortable on the medal that you're going for, I think 2 weeks will be enough for your body to get the plasma volumes and your hematocrit back up to what it needs to be.
Cool. Quick question in from Sandy. Do you believe in carb loading 3 days before with supplements?
No, I don't. Mostly because if you're following a fairly high carbohydrate diet anyway, and you account for the fact that you're not even going to do any, you're probably not even going to get close to 30% of your normal training. Your body is going to be packing away anything that you eat anyway. So you don't need all those extra calories. You will do plenty of carbo loading just by following your normal eating diet.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Lindsay, I know we're going to run through the route in just a moment. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, it's a comment in from Oscar. Oscar obviously speaks from experience, and this is something that you mentioned to me all the time, and I'm sure you're going to run through it on the route itself. But he says going out too fast, for every minute you run too fast in the first half, you lose 2 in the second. Is that a pretty good rule of thumb? What's your thing? The thing
More
you
like
always
4.
tell me. There we go.
Yeah, closer to 4, sometimes more, depending on just how much too fast you go. I mean, you can lose hours in the second half if you go too fast in the first half.
Yeah, I mean the up run. I think it was 2013 when it was so hot. I bumped into guys a couple of months later. They went through halfway on silver pace. I don't know. I mean, I've never come close to a silver. What do you need to go through halfway if you're running a silver? You know?
Yeah, 345. So on the up run, that probably means like 340,
Yeah.
337 to 340.
And they dipped in just under 12 hours. It was a very long second
Yeah.
half. They went out way too
Yeah.
fast. Lindsay, a couple of questions coming in about the gradients and the lengths of the big five. I know you're probably going to run through it on the route profile, but do you want to talk us through this one?
Yeah, let me talk through the route profile, and I don't go into that much, or I don't have that much detail, but I'll give you an approximation of what I know in my memory. So look, the race will start in Durban itself, and you will hit the first, what for most people, particularly internationals, will actually be a significant hill. And a fact that I learned from another coach, Norrie Williamson, who's quite well known in South Africa, is that they actually used to start Comrades in the very early days on the Pietermaritzburg side of this hill called Tollgate Hill, which is 3 km into the race, because they believed that was too steep a hill to start the race with. So it is a significant little climb, and you will know within 3 km of the up run that actually you are now running the up run. Then after about 7 km, you will hit another climb, which is still not part of the Big Five. It's known as 45th Cutting. Now, on the down run, it is the last the of the Big Five, and it's really not it's not a severe climb, but it 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 gets its status as one of the Big Five. But again, what it tells you is that in 10 km you've already done two significant hills, which haven't really got names in terms of the up run. The next, and then you literally climb, once you've gone over the downslope of 45th Cutting, which you hit at about 9 kilometers, from there, you more or less just all the way through until you hit the foot of this hill, which is roughly at the 17k mark, I think. And that is a 2k climb. Now, this is the first of the Big Five. So at 17 kilometers, you hit the first of the Big Five. It's 17 kilometers. And at 17 kilometers, it's 2 kilometers long. It is quite steep, and you will definitely know you are in for a battle. Steep, I'd say it's steep by Comrades terms. The Comrades climbs actually aren't that steep, but it's probably in the region of 5, 4, probably 4% gradient. Then you drop down the other side and you hit what's known as Pinetown at a little under 20 k's. You run through Pinetown, and Field Hill starts at around 23, 24 k's. Now, Field Hill is the longest climb of the day. It's a brute. The middle section is probably the steepest of the day, and so it probably gets to around 6%, but not 4% in length. And I say 3 to 4 k's because it kind of does it more and more gradual, but you will climb all the way up until you hit Hillcrest. And even in Hillcrest, you're still climbing, but probably climbing at about a 1% climb that takes you from around about 23 k's to around about 30 k's, where you get fairly flat again till about 34 k's. Fields Hill is the second of the Big Five, and then you will hit the third of the Big Five, which is Bonitas Hill. It's just under 2 k's in length, and it is the steepest climb of the day. So a little over 6%, and it's just under 2 kilometers of length, and you will hit 36 kilometers, and you will really be feeling like you cannot possibly be climbing anymore. And fortunately, you won't be climbing much for a little while, but there's still lots of climbing to come on the day. You will then drop all the way down into Drummond, which takes you to 42 kilometers. And then from 42 Ks, we have what for me is the steepest climb of the day. That is in Chunga, not the steepest, sorry, the hardest. It's in Chunga because you've already run a marathon and it is pretty steep, and it is also probably about, no, it's about 6 Ks in length until you get to the very top, and it's a snaky, windy road, and it takes you to a little over 50 kilometers. Now from in Chunga, there's a lot of rolling up and down, up and down, up and down. By the way, Chunga is the 4th of the big 5, and so you've done by 50 Ks the bulk of the climbing. So from here, if you've got some running in your legs, the going certainly is a lot easier. You've got some rolling, very gentle up, very gentle down. That pattern continues pretty much all the way until just after Camperdown, where you'll climb Umlaas Road, which is a really innocuous little climb, but you are tired and you are sick of running uphill of the route, Umlaas Road. Now from Umlaas Road all the way down to Little Polly's, and Little Polly's I would estimate at being at 11 Ks to run. It is a tough little hill, but it's very short, and then you've got a nice long downhill run into Polly Shorts. Polly Shorts being the 5th of the big 5. It is again a little under 2 to run. Will be able. Only people that will run up Polly's are those that have to. So those that are trying to win the race or that are very marginal on a cutoff. And then the last 6 kilometers of the new route are a fairly gentle affair with some very short little speed bumps, we'll call them. I think there are 2 of them. But that essentially is the route in a nutshell. Before we go to taking on questions, I do just want to go into what this means. What does it mean now that I've gone through this course? And you can see the first 36 Ks are absolutely monstrous. So you have to hold back. Okay, this is so critical, especially those that are losing lots of time at the start. I know you're going to panic. I know that you're going to be worried. I know you're going to be like, I can't believe I've lost 10 minutes already. Now I have to do Comrades in 11:50. But prepare yourself for that mentally now. Know that it's going to happen. Don't let it freak you out on race day. You must hold back. You need to be the tortoise in the story and not the hare. Slow and steady. Run, walk those hills. Remember what I said earlier. Go and work out, once you've got your goal plan, go and work out how much time can I afford to lose in those 36 Ks without making it ridiculous to catch it up in the second half. And remember that from 36 to 42, you've got 6 Ks of loads of downhill where you'll probably be able to catch up around about half of the time that you've lost without trying, without pushing, and we don't want to push. Then you'll lose a fair chunk of that time, but then you've got a long drop down the other side of Nchanga, long drop down, where you'll get that time back, and then over those rolling ups and down, you'll just steadily claw back your time. Then you want to put time in the bag, so to speak, the proverbial bag. You want to put that time in the bag from the top of Umlaas Road to the bottom of Polly Shorts. That's your section of the race where you want to run, in inverted commas, a little bit too fast.
Lindsay, lots of questions coming through. I know we touched on pacing, and it's difficult to sort of go, but as far as you mentioned the sort of big medals, if you're going for a silver, if you're going for a Bull Rowan, going for a bronze, going for a finish, what should you be going through halfway in?
So for a silver, a marginal silver, you probably want to be going through the Drummond halfway in 337 to 340. For a Bull Rowan, you want to be going through at the fastest a 422, probably 4:23:24 is recommended, and the slowest you want to go through is probably about 4:27. For a bronze, you're probably looking at about 5:20. You want to probably go through in between 5, at the absolute fastest 5:18. Probably ideal is around 5:20, 5:21, and the slowest you probably want to go through is about 5:26. That's probably a bit slow. Call it 5:25. And then on the finishes is much more complicated, because on the finishes you're going to lose loads of time at the beginning, and you don't want to spend the whole half making up all the time you lost. So Comrades will give you 6 hours 10 to go through halfway. I do know people that finish the race after going through in 6:09. I wouldn't like to put that kind of pressure on myself, but I reckon if you could make up about half of that time. So if you're a real marginal finisher, you probably want to go through somewhere between 6 and 6:05. And obviously the closer you get to 6 without trying, the better, without forcing it, if you know what I mean. But anything up to around 6:05 is all right. And then you want to set about, from 50 k's, you really want to set about getting a little bit ahead of the target pace.
Brilliant. Okay, Lindsay, and then your last thing, this is a big one that you are all about on Comrades Race Day, is just keep telling yourself that you're not going to stop from the moment you wake up. Every step you take is going to be towards Pietermaritzburg.
Yeah, so look, this is my speech for, and I know we're running tight on time, but we'll go a little bit over. I don't mind going a little bit over, but you're going to lose time going over the start mat. So in South Africa, all our races are gun to mat. Okay, so your time doesn't start when you cross the start mat. It starts when the start gun goes. Now that is quite daunting for a lot of people, because as I said, the people who can least afford to lose time are the people that are losing anywhere between 6 and 10 minutes to get over the start line. All right. So then as the day progresses, early on in the day, you don't really perceive time or understand how much time you lose when you stop moving. But every time you stop to talk to the people that are seconding you, every time you stop at a water point, every time you stop at a first aid station or at a massage station, every time you stop moving, the clock keeps on ticking. And if you're going to see your family or friends that are seconding you 3 times, that's another 5 to 10 minutes that you lose without even realizing it. If you're going to stop at every second water station, every time you stop, you will lose a minimum of 30 seconds. As soon as you stop moving, you lose 30 seconds. So let's say out of the 48 refreshment stations, you only stop at 24. That's 12 minutes. Okay, so you start to understand the picture that I'm painting is that although you will lose 6 minutes, give or take, at the start, by stopping on the side of the road repeatedly, you will lose triple that amount of time. And then instead of having 11 hours and 55 minutes to finish Comrades, what you're actually going to be left with is 11 and a half hours, or 11:20. So when you wake up, you make yourself the promise that when you cross that start mat, that every single step, every single second of the rest of that day will be a step closer to Pietermaritzburg. I'm not suggesting you ignore the people that have come out there to support you and that are so excited to see you. But really, you can get close enough to them. You can walk a few steps so that you can say a word or two to them, give them a high five. Maybe 1 or 2 of them can walk with you for a couple of steps and have a little bit of a chat to you. But at the water points, similarly, slow down to a walk. Make sure you get what you need, but don't stop moving. Don't blow 30 seconds. It's just not worth it. Never, ever stop. The only reason that's acceptable to stop is if you need to go to the bathroom. And we can't do anything about that. We need to go to the toilet. But other than that, make sure that you just keep moving. Walking or running, but you just keep moving. And if you stick to that principle, I promise you'll get your medal at the end of the day. You will get your medal. You will not lose enough time to not get your medal.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Yeah, just once again, a huge thank you to Bonitas for making these online seminars possible. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't have been able to do them. The hashtag is Bonitas Comrades. I'm going to ask you all a massive favor. If you've got anything out of these seminars, please just send a Facebook message or a tweet and use that hashtag Bonitas Comrades, just saying how much you enjoyed it. Obviously, they are investing in it and would like to see some return for what they've done, and hopefully you have got a lot out of it. Lindsay, before we get to a few more questions, I know we are pretty much out of time. I just wanted to mention that big announcement that I spoke about at the start of tonight's online seminar. We've been doing these sort of things for a good few years now. I actually can't believe it. I think this is the 4th year of webinars we've been doing, Lindsay. It's crazy to think we've been doing them that long. But we also have been hosting a podcast called the Ask Coach Parry podcast, and we've decided to make a few big changes around the online platform of Lindsay's, around coachparry.com, and one of them is a huge change to the podcast. We're changing the format, and if you're in the Facebook group, the Coach Parry Facebook group, if you want to get there, just go to coachparry.com/Facebook. A week or so ago, we put a couple of images up there asking people to sort of vote on the images that they really liked, and that was the one that popped up, and that is the brand new podcast that is launching tomorrow. It's called Run with Coach Parry. And yeah, we're going to be doing something very, very different on there. We're going to be featuring sort of ordinary, everyday athletes and helping them get better. And hopefully you'll come along with a journey for us. I'm pretty excited by it. The response we've had from the few people who have listened to it so far, absolutely love it. So, yep, look out for that on the Ask Coach Parry feed on iTunes. If you're not subscribing, you can. And yeah, that should be in the iTunes store tomorrow, which I'm pretty excited about. And we've also made a couple of big changes to coachparry.com as well. If you haven't been onto the website for a while, please go check it out. First thing, it's a lot faster than what it used to be, which is a huge thing. But there's also a whole bunch of training programs, and obviously Comrades is nearly out of the way. We want to help as many people as we can run their best 10, 21, and 42. So, yeah, if you want to find out more about what we're up to, head over to coachparry.com. And I also want to urge you to consider becoming part of the community. And we've spoken a little bit about the map of Comrades, and what maps are you using? That's the big question. You wouldn't want to try and navigate London with a map of New York, for example. You're just not going to get to where you're going. And that's one of the biggest problems that we see in the running space online, is that there's so much noise. And I want to urge you not to do the same with your running. Don't try and run a Comrades with the wrong maps, or run a marathon with the wrong maps, or the wrong training program, so to speak. And one of the big problems is we've got some great training programs that Lindsay and the coaches at Coach Parry have written, but then people take those training programs and they go and try and get consensus on various Facebook groups, and they try and run whatever it is with outside confirmation. What I would suggest is, if you're using Lindsay's training programs, whatever it is, if it's Comrades or if it's for a 10K or a 21, become part of the Coach Parry online community and get answers from the source. You've got access to someone like Lindsay. Why not use it? There's a pretty cool forum that we've got on that website. It's the only place that you can get access to Lindsay ongoing on that online forum. We have weekly Q&A calls with Coach Parry and the rest of the coaches as well. There's a couple other coaches that we've got on there that work very closely with Lindsay, that have the same coaching philosophy. And then there's a community of runners just like you. You don't have to be on this journey alone. So what I want to urge you to do is go and join the Coach Parry community. It's literally going to cost you less than R5 a day. And if you think about what R5 is, that's nothing. For our international viewers, that's less than 50 US cents a day. And you get access to a world-class coach. Just to give you some pedigree on Lindsay, obviously you all know his Comrades pedigree with Caroline Vosman and Shanae Bosman the last 2 years. But Lindsay also coaches Yvette van Sail, who is an Olympic marathoner, Vian Sulvalt, who's a junior world champion triathlete, and has got was also the high performance coach for Triathlon South Africa for the last few years. Took a team to Rio, took a team to London, was also the high performance coach when Team South Africa won silver at the Commonwealth Games. So you're not going to get a better coach for less than $5 a day. Please go and join. If you join annually, you get 3 months free, and there's a huge bonus too. You can get on to the podcast Run with Coach Parry, a free coaching call for signing up for a year. So go check it out. It is coachparry.com/join. We'd love to have you in there. if you've got any questions, that's where you can get access to Lindsay. So, Lindsay, just a couple of questions, if it's cool with you. We've
Yep.
had quite a few. Someone saying I used Coach Perry's programs training to the T. Great program. Thank you, Sean. There's a bit of a vote of confidence for you. All right. There's just lots of pacing questions. Again, get yourself a pacing chart at the expo. Listen to one of Lindsay's talks. Yeah, Lindsay, I think we've pretty much covered everything. We don't have many more questions coming through towards the end here, so I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head on this one, which I'm hoping that everyone's feeling a bit calmer. The nerves are good, but they are amped and ready to go. I don't know if you have any sort of parting shots that you want to share with everyone before we wrap things up.
I just want to emphasize again, well done to everybody for getting to this point. You really have completed an incredible journey. I know you haven't completed the whole journey because you haven't got to the race, but you are now probably fitter and stronger than you have ever been in your life. So don't panic. Don't try and cram in extra training. Really embrace that fitness and strength and allow your body to freshen up now over the next 3 weeks. Look after yourselves, and hopefully I will see a lot of you in Durban. As I said, we will make those times that I'm there known so that you can plan your trip to the expo to just come and have a photo or ask a last little bit of advice. But yeah, well done for getting to this point. But now let's get you to the start line pain-free, and let's get you a medal. I'm really excited about the 4th of June.
Cool. Lindsay, one quick question. It came through early on and somebody else just asked and reminded me. They were asking about cross-training. Can they continue cross-training through the taper? Should they back off on the cross-training as well?
Yes. So I continue my cross-training, strength training, all of that stuff up until 10 days before. So that's a great question. Thanks to whoever asked that. I should have put that in the as part of the taper. But yeah, so up until 10 days before, keep doing your strength training, keep doing your cross-training. And then for those last 10 days, you'll cut those things out.
All right, cool. And then another question, which I think is important, from Christopher, asking about the pacing charts. Where can people get your pacing charts?
So there will be a stand at the Comrades Expo. So this always confuses the foreigners, and I can already see that Danny, once again, doesn't like my translation. Buses are paces, right? So I'll get this right. You can buy the pacing charts at the Comrades coaching stand. So often when people from overseas come there, they come to the coaches and they think coaches are buses. Well, in South Africa, a coach is a trainer. So the Comrades coach stand is the Comrades trainer stand. It's not the Comrades bus stand, and that is where you will get the pacing charts.
I love it. Lindsay, that's about it. I can't believe that this is over. It's our last one, and to be honest, I'm not sure if we're going to be doing these webinars in this form going forward. So this might be the last one we do. But it's been amazing. I've loved every single minute of it. I think I've got lots out of it. I know that much, and I know you love doing them as well. So I want to wish everyone safe travels. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. Safe travels to KZN, and I hope you have an amazing day on race day, and all your wishes and aims do come true, and you go home with that medal that you're chasing. So from myself, Brad Brown, it's cheers. Lindsay, I'm going to leave the last words for you.
Yeah, guys, good luck. If it's your first one, cherish it. There's nothing quite like your first Comrades. I'm looking forward to sharing the road with you guys this year. So the 4th of June can't come fast enough.